Video, we're going to look at homework 3 for CS151 in the fall of 2019. We're going to look at how to check it out and what the correct programs are supposed to do. Okay, and a few other hints and tips. So first, I'm going to need to log into the server. I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to go into my utilities and terminal to connect. And I'm going to use my 151 account to log in. And if you don't have the homework already checked out, then you do handin-c homework 3, just like it says to do over here. Okay, if you need a clean copy of homework 3 because you maybe messed up one of your files, you could make a new directory. So something clean copies or something like that. So I could go into this directory, and if I do handin-c here, then it just checked out homework 3 in this directory. So if you need just one of the files and you need the original version, then you could do this. And let's just say that my count program was messed up. So I could be inside of this where I just checked out new copies, the original copies, and if I want to copy that over to my homework 3 directory, then I would do it like this. Okay. So I'm going to go into, I just checked out the files, and let's just take a look at what they look like. Okay, first we're going to just say what's happening with this here. So it says to do this. What this does is it makes each of the Python files executable. Normally you run a Python file like this. We're using Python 3, so we run Python, and the Python is going to run the instructions in here. We can also run these files like this. So we didn't have Python 3 as the command, we had just the program with the / in front of it. And if we look at the program, the first line is what tells Linux that it's going to run Python 3. You can leave this line alone exactly as it is. Because that line is there, and because I did this command, I can run the files like this. It's just a little less typing. Okay, so now I want to look at each of the files to see what the comments say. This one here, so you maybe pause and read the comment if you haven't yet, but it says I want to print off the first multiples of 5 multiples of 3, and you might put in here what you want to print. So I want it to print 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. That's the first 5 multiples of 3. So you want to change this range command to do that. I have a correct version that I'll run. Okay, that's not a correct version. Let me pause for a second. Let's try it again. Okay, so that's what we want to print. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, multiples of 3, and there's 5 of them, and we can run it either way because of what we did with the chmod. Okay, so that's the first program. Let's look at operators. Let's look at factor. It's the next one in alphabetical order. So let me run the correct file. It's easier for you to understand what's supposed to happen if I run the correct one. Okay, it's waiting for me to type some numbers. Let's say I type 10 and 5. So the second number, we're checking to see if it's a factor of 10. let's try 10 and 3. So do you think, sorry, 1 per line, 10 and 3. 3 is not a factor of 10. What about 10 and 10? 10 is a factor of 10. What about 5 and 10? 10 is not a factor of 5. So that's what it's supposed to do. Just checking, is the second number a factor of the first? Okay, so we want to divide. We want to do 10 divided by 5, and what's the remainder? So you could, just to get things working, you could do this in the Python 3 console. So let's just say A equals 10 and B equals 5. So the way to get remainder is percent. So you want to check if A percent B is 0 or not. So if I say B equals 3, now the remainder is not 0. Okay, so you're going to have something like this somewhere inside of that program. And that is this stuff here. So somewhere inside of here, you're going to have A percent B, and you're checking if it's 0. So you can do that with an if test, or you could do it potentially just using this value as it is. Okay, so all you need to do is you need to make it so this function checks this A percent B and either returns true or false. You can use this code, or you can just comment this code out and just do it the way you think you should do it. So if I just do this, then it's going to say true every time. Right, it says true every time. All right, that's the second program. I also want to point out that the way the program is written, it's expecting numbers 1 per line. And the reason for that is because it's doing an input statement for A and another input line for B. So it's really expecting, for all these programs, when you're supposed to be typing in numbers, you do 1 per line. If you try to do 2 at a time, it's going to be an error. Okay, let's look at the next one, operators. It's inputting 3 numbers, 1 per line, and then we're asking for what's the sum of the 3 numbers. So let's say A equals 3, B equals 2, C equals 5. So what would the correct output be? So if A, B, and C are 3, 2, 5, if we add them up, we would print 10 would be potentially the correct number that we're looking for. The average of the 3 numbers, so if our total was 10 and we have 3 of them, then 3.33 or something like that, depending on how many decimal places. What's the product of the 3 numbers? 3 times 2 times 5 is 30. And then here is A equal to C. No, in this case it's not, so it would print false. All right, so for this one, you just want to put inside of here, adding up the 3 variables. Just add them up. So A plus B plus C probably is going to give the correct answer. Here you want the average, and you need to make sure about, so pay attention to order of operations if you're getting something that's not the right value, and use parenthesis as needed. The product is similar to the sum, and here you need to check if A equals C or not. So checking if something is equal is like this. And maybe you're going to use an if, or maybe you're not, but you want to print true or false based on this. Okay, that's operators, and we can show, let's run the correct version. So 3, 2, 5, there's 10 is the sum, 3.3, 30 is the product, and they're not equal to each other. If I run it with 3, 2, 3, pause the video, and what do you think the answers should be? Okay, so adding them up is 5, the average is 2.6, the product is 18, and this time A was equal to C. Let's look at the next one, scores. Okay, if you look in the code, you're going to skip past all of this. That's reading in the input. And then our code is actually going to be right here. I want to run it the way it is. So it's asking for some numbers, and it'll keep asking until we type -1. Then for each one of those, it's printing what letter grade is that score. If we look in the code, that's right here inside of this loop. So for 4 loops, everything that's spaced over is part of the loop. So I'm going to say print score is S. Okay, and the print statement, we can separate things by commas and it'll print both of them. I'm going to comment this out, and I just want to make sure that when I run it, I do see score is S. 55, 95, -1. Okay. So what we're supposed to do here is print the correct score, and you're going to need probably an if. So if, and I want to say the score is an A. So I really only want to print the score is an A if the score actually is an A. And so then what I need to do is put in here, what is the condition? S is some score. What's the condition for it to be an A? And this is the condition. So I'm going to run it like that. So when the score was 55, nothing extra got printed. When the score was 95, it printed the A. So what you need to do is add in the rest of the letter grades. So what are the conditions for the rest of the letter grades? And if you need to review what you can do with ifs, go back and check the book. If we look at the correct one, so 55, 65, 75, 85, 95. So it told us that 55 is an F. Right, it didn't give the score, so I need to change my file to print the score as well. It should have been 55 an F, 65 is a D, 75 is a C. So those are the values. Now what if I do 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, and -1 to stop. So these are the boundary conditions. So if you get exactly 60, that's considered a D. If you get a 90, that's an A, not a B. Okay, let's look at the next one, squares. So it's getting an integer there, and if, let's just say if n was 3, then we're supposed to print the first 3 squares. So it would be this: 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared. Or another way to say it, this is 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3. Okay, let's go over and run my correct program just to see what that looks like. So if I give 3, then it printed 149. If I say 5, 4 times 4 and 5 times 5 are there as well. All right, so this is what you want to happen, and what you need is a for loop where you have a variable I go from 1 up to n. And then inside of the for loop, you're going to have something like I times I. Okay, so go ahead and you need to look up how to do a for loop that goes from 1 to n in the book. And then inside of there, you're just going to print this. Okay, then the last one is strings. So there's going to be 3 strings that are input. So let's just say that the first one was hi, and the second one was okay, and the third one was ball or something. Okay, so concatenated means just printed together. So this would be hi, okay, ball is what would print. The length of the 3 strings, so here I want to print 2, 4, 4 if these were the strings, and then the value of A 5 times, hi, 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 is what we should print. Let's take a look and see if my version does that. I'll just run it like this. So hi, okay, ball. So there's the concatenation, there's the lengths, and there's the repeated 5 times. Okay, so for this one, you need to use whatever is for string concatenation. And plus is the thing you use to do string concatenation. Look it up in the book again, or ask Google, Python string concatenation. So oftentimes that will work as well. So probably this will be talking about using the plus. All right, the length of a string, you could do the same thing here. So there it says the len, and you'll see an example. And here repeating and I'm not sure whether those are going to show what you need to do. So for string repeating, you can use times. And those are all in the first couple chapters of the books that we've looked at. But you can also ask Google if you don't remember where it was in the book. Let's go over and run the correct one. Oh, we already ran the correct one. All right, so. And that's the end. Okay, so when you're done, remember that you're going to hand in from your home directory. So you hand in homework 3. Okay, if you're inside of your homework 3 directory and you type hand in homework 3, it will also work. So what it's looking for is it's looking for homework 3 directory in your home directory. So if I have some other Right, I have some other directory clean copies. So I had a directory here. This was another, you might have another copy of homework 3 if you did handin-C somewhere else. So now I have a homework 3 directory that's inside of clean copies. So if I had a count.py here and I fixed it so that it's, you know, correct, and if I do handin homework 3, it's still going back to my home directory. And even if I'm right here, so here it's confused because there's a homework 3 directory here, and it's also a homework 3 directory up at the top. So it doesn't know which one I want. If I do homework 3 from the top, then it knows that this is the one that I want. The clean copies directory could be useful. I'm going to remove it. So you could make a directory whatever name you want, and you could check out the assignment there, but don't work on it there. So then if you end up with some problem with your file, you could have a new one. So let's just say that my factor.py was messed up some way that I don't know what to do with it anymore. So if I have a fresh version over here that I haven't modified, I could copy it back into my homework 3 directory. Okay, so those are all the things that I could think of that might help you with this assignment. Good luck.